Warren Ingram from Galileo Capital. The silly things people do when they start working. Well, they start working. That's a silly thing to do, isn't it?
What do you mean? That's a fabulous thing to do. People would love to be working. So no, that's the good part.
Okay. What are the silly things? It's a universal thing. What are the silly things people do?
So to me, the first one most of us do when we start work, and I'm putting myself firmly in this category, is we get offered credit cards. The banks sort of throw them at us once we start earning a salary and we have our first pay slip. And and to this day, for example, on your online profile, they'll be telling you as you open up, this is how
you
much
qualify for extra. Just phone this number.
Yeah, and it's about 12 years of what I earn. So it's only about 17 rand, but it's a big number. And what's interesting about that is, a credit card is probably as close as you get to the financial equivalent of a seriously addictive drug, because it's just so easy to use, and it's very hard to actually track what you spend unless you do it very sensibly, unless you do it very carefully.
There is nothing more sobering than putting your credit card away for a week, drawing cash from an ATM, and spending only cash. Do that for a week. Don't change your spending patterns. And by the end of the week, you'll have a fundamentally different view of your credit card, because it's not money. It's just a swipe. It's fine.
And the issue when you start work is you only have to pay that back in, let's say, a month, a bit more than a month and a half. So you lose track. And I mean, I can remember this happening to me absolutely clearly. It's still one of the most brutal lessons I've ever learned with my first salary was, get this credit card, spend freely, and as you say, probably spent that entire credit limit in the first week, then had sort of 3 weeks of just living off my debit card for a little while, and then getting sort of to a month and a half and going, hang on, I'm actually, I don't really know what to do now. And then to make it worse, what the bank will do is say to you, don't worry, you don't have to pay off the whole amount, you can just pay off a portion, and it's roughly 10% of it.
You go, oh, thank goodness, what nice people you are.
And what's happening is you're paying, more than 20% a year of interest on that money. So it's compounding at you, against you at a rate that's impossible for you to earn an investment that will, or have an investment that will grow faster than that. So this, what happens now is, your addictive, card suddenly starts to really bite you all over the place. So to me, that's the biggest mistake that people make in the working environment, is they get these credit cards, take the maximum credit limit that they're allowed, because that's what the banks offer them, and that's what all their friends and family tell them to do as well.
But I get rewards, and I get points, and I get miles, and I get e-bucks, and I get things. They give me stuff. The more I use it, they love me so much. They throw rewards at me.
Yeah, and so that's a beautiful hook. And it plays on our behavior. Those are designed by psychologists, by the way. So it gamifies the way that we spend. It actually incentivizes us and makes it a nice game. If you spend X, you can go to the next level and the next level and the next level. That's designed. It actually manipulates human behavior for us to do that. So the issue for me.
Are you suggesting that it's not in my best interest to do this one?
I'm far from trying to be very blunt here. So those are wonderful. Credit cards are wonderful tools if you use them correctly. And I think one of the myths around a credit card, so when you start work, people say, take as much credit as they'll give you, just in case something goes wrong. And that's okay if you're incredibly financially disciplined and you don't fall into that trap. Then having this accessible credit that you never ever use for potentially the rainy day that you haven't planned for I can get the merits of that. The problem is we don't do that as human beings, because we get all these rewards and you don't get rewarded for not spending on your credit card. You get rewarded for spending on your credit card. So my suggestion to people in that instance when you're starting is get the smallest credit limit possible, and for example, a week's worth of your expenses. Because I'm using your cash analogy here, but just trying to refine it a bit to say, okay, so if you start the week, and let's just say we start on a Monday, and by Wednesday you've clocked your credit limit already and your card gets declined, that's a really firm reminder that you've now blown your weekly budget there and then. And then what it forces you to do is at the end of the weekend, you top up from your cash account into your credit card. You do it online, so hopefully it's cost free, and you do your next week. And at the end of the last week of the month, you clear that debt. So by the end of the month, you owe no bank any money, and you've only spent within your budget. So that to me is a simple way of trying to control yourself and your spending until you've learned and you've got your training wheels and you know how to do it. If you know that's not going to work for you, then you adopt the Bruce Whitfield approach. You leave that card at home. and you operate on cash.
It's such a good exercise. I would encourage everybody to do it, and just try to live on cash for a week. If you're addicted to your credit card, and if you swipe because you're a very nice person, and when there's a round of coffees at the office, you say, I'm going to get this because, hey, I just pop it on my card. You stop thinking, you stop engaging with the real hard, cold cash in the background, and that's very dangerous.
Yeah, and I think you start to capitalize on your behavior in the right way.
Johnny next door's got the most fabulous new GTI. I drive a 15-year-old Skadonk. Yeah, I feel worthless as a human being. So what am I going to do to make myself feel better? Not ignore Johnny. I'm going to match Johnny's car. In fact, I'm going to get a GTI R with mag wheels just to upset it.
And I think that's the issue, and it is universal. But I think somehow in South Africa we're more prone to it than anything else. We judge our relative self-worth in comparison to our peers by the car we drive. So it's fascinating to drive around apartment blocks around, just around where I live, so around Joburg, and you see very small apartments, 1-bedroom, tiny places that probably cost in the region of 800,000 rand, and then you look at the cars in the parking lot, and those are worth 1.5 million, and that tells you our priorities are just not there, as South Africans. So we love to overspend on our cars, and that's a behavior that we have to change. So to me, if you're starting work, public transport is just not a reliable way to go for most people. In which case, clearly, a car, once you can afford it, it goes from being a want to an absolute necessity. My suggestion there is, you stay far away from the new car market and you look at a good, reliable, safe second-hand car. And again, don't do the calculation by what you can afford on your budget every month and say, the finance company that's trying to sell you the car says you can buy the most expensive car out. You go and buy the absolutely cheapest but safe car that you possibly can. And that's it. And if you set your standard to say, the only reason why I need this is to get me from point A to point B every day, not to impress anybody, and if you can live with yourself by doing that, which is an important thing to do, then that's how you treat a car. It's not there as a status symbol. It's not a measure of your self-worth.
Somewhere where I think we're going to disagree, and my thinking was changed by Rudolf Buerter, the economist, independent economist, he was talking about renovating a property and all of this sort of thing, saying the advice he gave one of his kids was that you buy the best possible house in the best possible area that you can when you're starting out, and you stretch yourself as far as you possibly can within reason. And then when it comes to improving the property, you improve the property. You don't upgrade. You don't sell and upgrade and sell and upgrade and sell and upgrade, as so many of us have done, and pay transfer duties every time and the removal costs and all of that nonsense and additional costs, which I know that you despise. But you're also saying that we've got to be very careful about what we buy, when we buy it, and how much we spend on it, because a lot of people see the home as a store of value and therefore end up overspending on it.
So we're probably not going to disagree as much as you think. My view is you buy the house that you plan to, or the property that you plan to live in, for at least 8 years or more. So don't fall into that trap of going to buy the 1-bedroom apartment the moment you start work because everyone's told you not to pay off some other landlord's mortgage. So to me, that is the place that you rent. And then you do go and stretch yourself if that's what you want. If that's your priority, go and buy the house that you are going to stay in for a long period of time. So Rudolph's a smart guy. I'm not going to start arguing with him because it is good and sound.
Because he will argue back,
and he'll win
until you give back. Until you give up.
I'll have to agree. No, I agree with him. But to me, the time frame is 8 years. So if you're pretty sure that you're going to buy a place that you can grow into with a family potentially and all of those things, there are enough bedrooms, or you can add enough bedrooms. That's no problem. I think the one that bugs me though with people, starting out with work and in their housing is, let's say they listen to us or listen to me, and they're not going to buy their first apartment, but then they go and buy furniture and they go and buy appliances, and guess what? The store makes it so easy to pay it off over 6 or 12 months. So actually they can't really afford it because the only way they're getting it is on credit, and it's massively expensive.
But they can afford it because the installment's only 3,000 rand a month, and it would have cost them 20,000 rand to buy. They couldn't afford the 20,000, so instead they're going to spend the 3,000 rand over 2 years. And they can afford an installment of 3,000 rand a month. So that's okay.
I feel, if you start working out the costs and you look at the policy fees and this and that, all the things that get added on, you end up paying 2 or 3 times the value of whatever it is that you've bought.
Well, not the value, the cost.
The cost. The cost. And so the simple thing to do there is, we have a very vibrant second-hand market for appliances and furniture, etc., etc. And no one's going to know, I promise you, no one's going to know that your fridge is 1 year old when you buy it.
I went into for want of a better word, a pawn shop, PAWN shop the other day, just to check it out and just to see what was in stock and what was on sale. And I don't know about the mechanics and the workings and all of these sorts of things of the stuff that was on the shop floors, but the stuff looked good. And I thought to myself, why would you go and spend $5,000 on a new washing machine or dishwasher when the stuff on this floor is under $2,000 a pop? Provided, of course, you can have some sort of
guarantee that
that the stuff will work for a period of time.
And I think that's the point, and there are many great, web-based businesses now that do this as well. So to me, this is something we should be doing. We, especially when you start out, to kind of furnish your entire place, is actually quite easy to do, and probably at a third of the cost of what people would do on new, and that's if they were buying cash. So to me, that's it's just some almost dumb pride that would force us to buy new when you can buy working goods that are second hand.
Tell me quickly about insurance. A lot of people spend too much money on insurance, and some people don't spend nearly enough.
Let's talk about cars and specifics. You buy a car and you think, I don't need insurance for this. The car, I bought it cash. I bought a really cheap car and I've paid it cash. What happens when you drive out of work and you cause an accident in a 5 million rand Rolls Royce, as an example? Just understand you're liable for your car and the damage to the Rolls Royce. And the fact that the Rolls Royce is insured doesn't mean a thing. That insurance company is coming after you for that cost.
Insurance companies don't mind paying their customers, but they really do want to cover that cost, and they will come after you.
They have entire departments that do that. And so when you've got a car, and particularly if you have financed the car, you absolutely need insurance to replace your car, and if you have an accident, to do the repairs on the other car.
In fact, if you've got finance on the car, you're legally obliged to have insurance on it, because if it's not your car, it's the bank's car until you've paid for it.
Just amazing how many people still find a way to cancel it. And then just quickly on insuring your life, if you're starting work and you've got no dependents, nobody that needs to rely on you for income, and if you're not around, and you've got no debt, etc., then I would agree with the idea that you don't need life cover. However, and I don't want to sound like an insurance salesman, what you do need to do is insure your income if you can't work anymore. In other words, you do have a car accident and you are not able to perform any kind of work again for the rest of your life, and you're only 25 and you started out your career. That's called disability insurance, and you definitely need that. So to me, those are the two critical ones there. And then if you really, want to take your chances with the government hospitals, well, good luck to you. To me, I think I'd go for a hospital plan as well. So those are the kinds of insurances I think you have to have.
And then final one, plan as best you can your expenses. Know that you're going to have a holiday at some point. Some people work very, very hard and never take a break, but there are some that do take holidays. And don't leave it till the last minute, because it's going to cost, plane tickets going to cost you more, accommodation's going to cost you more, and you're not going to have saved the money for that because you've spent it already on the house and the car and the furniture and the insurances and everything else. But you still feel like you deserve the holiday because you've had such a tough year.
And that phrase that people sort of laugh about, fly now, pay later. To me, that is, again, it's back to the credit card, in fact, because that's what you're going to end up doing. And so when you get your salary, set aside a little bit of money every month from that salary, and work out what you want to spend on a holiday, and start doing that from the day you earn your first salary. So I'm not saying don't have fun. All I'm saying in that instance is put it aside and then spend on those fun things money that you already have.
Good, wise advice. And it's not only for people who are just starting out at work. Frankly, we all can learn from the guidance of Mr. Warren Ingram this evening, Personal Financial Advisor, Executive Director at Galileo Capital.